Ready? Jeff, start with the inside linebackers. Give me an analysis on what you think of that group.
It's been a good camp. I think that we've got some young guys that are playing like veterans because they have to. I think we got some experience in the room that you see show up in some situational football. And today was a good example of that. At the same time, trying to make it really hard for them. Really trying to put them through a camp where they have to grow to be game ready week one. And I think that's obviously this is one of those seasons, and we've had that here multiple times since I've been here, where week one is a big one, and we got to make sure that we're hitting on all cylinders right away. And I think that they've done a good job responding to that. I like the group as a whole. They're a high character group, high integrity group, and that goes in their work ethic and their day to day. I couldn't be prouder of the young men they are. And that's not cliche. It's one of those deals going into year 5 where everybody in the room I've had a hand in, and we've talked about that before. And it's been fun to watch them grow and to really progress as the fall camp has been going. I think if you look at each one of them, Trey Lathan coming off a good spring where he recovered from the injury, and spring's different because we go a day off in between every practice, and you got to really it's a good opportunity to kind of wean your way back into playing football. Here in camp, first 5 days are rolling, and it's back to back. And he's done a good job of pushing through and taking care of himself. He's back to full speed. He's playing fast, and he's got things that he's got to work on like every other player. But I'm happy with his speed and where he's running right now, and his diagnosis. We just got to continue to push and some pad level things and things like that is going to be consistently what he's going to work on playing the position. Josiah Trotter has had a good camp to this point, coming off of a really good spring. Young guy right now that does have a high football IQ for a young player. Play strength is good. He's running well right now. A little bit of the same thing as Trey, where you're having to go every day and practice every day, whereas spring was kind of an easier way to wean into football. So he's done a good job with his maintenance program and taking care of his body so that he can continue to play consistently. And I'm looking forward to seeing him finally in a game. The guy's been here forever and hasn't played a game for us. But Ben Cutter, definitely a guy that, if you look at him through the offseason, has gotten stronger, has gotten faster, has gotten more explosive, continues to progress in coverage aspects of it, playing a little more into the boundary than he did last year during the season, for no other reason other than probably a little more closer to the ball than he was. And I like where he's come, still progressing to make sure that we can finish plays in and out of the box with him, and like where he's progressed with that. Reed Carrico, been a really good addition for us. He's down a little bit of weight since before he got here, meaning as previous school he was playing a little bigger. That wasn't natural for him. He's got his weight right where he needs it to be. A testament to our nutrition staff and Mike and his staff. He's playing fast. He's leaner, and he's a strong kid for his size. And I like where he's been progressing and really integrated himself in the defense. And he's been a very welcome addition, and extremely high effort like the other guys, and that's what you want to see. And then Caden Beiser's picked up where he left off at the end of the season there, and playing in the bowl game and playing in some other games. And he's a guy that I've got a high level of confidence, knows both positions, and multiple guys are playing multiple positions, whether it's a sub package or in our base defense. So I'm happy with where they're at and the different ways that we can utilize them all.
Just listen to a lot of guys. Is the operative word options for you maybe a little bit?
Yeah, I think options and competition. I think they know that every day they better bring their A game, because there's a guy, and we talked about it last night, that there's a lot of guys on that sideline that wish they were getting that play. We can only play 11 guys at one time, and I can only play 2 inside linebackers in base defense at one time. Are there some different ways that we can utilize our options? Absolutely, but I think competition, and I think that's probably been something you've heard from other coaches too this year, that has been a reoccurring theme. So we've got competition in the room, and the great thing is where I started this conversation, I got a bunch of guys that are high character, high integrity, so they're using it as an opportunity to sharpen each other, understanding that the best guy is going to play and the hot hand's going to stay in the game, and we're going to do what we got to do to win football games, but we have options, and that creates competition.
You didn't have depth last year, but injuries and such, and you couldn't rotate a lot. With
Right.
this kind of depth, you've envisioned rotating more, or
I
just
would.
go with the hot hand?
I would like to. I would like to. We're gonna have every game. We're gonna have a plan on how we want to play guys, and we're gonna have in pencil a play count that's gonna have to be adjusted as the game goes on. And every game has its own life, and you got to adapt in each game. But like you said, it's gonna give us an opportunity to have different options. But yeah, I would like to play more guys. I'd like to have guys fresher in the second half of the game, and at this position, and I've said it before, these guys are all going to be on special teams. And all those guys I mentioned and some of these young guys that I didn't mention are all going to be factors on special teams. And that's cover units, that's return units. And it's going to allow us as a team to play more guys on different units. So there's not going to be, hopefully, there's not going to be that guy that I'm counting on to play 70, 80 plays on defense. So now he's only been able to play 3 or 4 plays on special teams. If my starter is able to play in that 40 to 50 plus, but he's able to still play on 10 to 15 snaps of teams, whether that's on cover units or return units, now you're maximizing your ability that you have in the building, and that's what you want to do.
I'm guessing you sometimes have a player or two that might be really good at some aspect of special teams, coverage, getting on blocks, whatever it is. And because of that, you want to get him over there, might cut down his availability on straight defensive snaps a little bit. Is that a tough sell process in today's game?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're asking. I think this guys don't come here to necessarily play on special teams. I understand that, all right, and that's a necessary part of winning a championship is playing on special teams on offense and defense. And I think what the guys have done a good job as a team, as a special teams coordinator, part of it is guys understand that we can win games on special teams. And they also understand that we can lose games on special teams, no matter how good we play on offense and defense. And I think as a collective unit, all positions, they understand that they're going to have to do their part in that. Now, do they want to sacrifice offensive and defensive snaps to do that? No. And are we going to ask them to do that? I wouldn't think so. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, they came here to play offense and defense. But we're going to maximize the talent and the personnel that we have in the program on special teams, and that's gonna be a mandate, and that starts from Coach Brown and all of our assistant coaches.
What do you think are your freshman linebackers, other young linebackers besides the one you mentioned?
Yeah, Curtis Jones from In-State got here in the summer with Ricky Williams from Ohio. Those are our 2 scholarship incoming guys. I really like where they're at after, I guess, 10 weeks now. They were not early enrollees, so a little different than the last year's class. But they are both quick learners. They're both not afraid to ask questions, and they're both very vocal guys in the meeting room. Now, they both need to pick it up on the field vocally and use that time to show, their preparedness, because they know and they can speak, confidence into the guys around them. That's part of playing linebacker. But they're both very bright, both very talented, both look the part, have the bodies, have the length. They're gonna look even scarier in a year after Mike and his staff get a hang of them. But both are gonna have an opportunity to contribute this year, which is the hope with every freshman that you bring in. And how much and what roles, that's to be seen. But I like both of them, and again, they both fit in what we've built in the room and with the defense.
Trotter seems to be a guy that, like his dad, a little bit of spice to him, a little bit of that. What do you like about him? And he also mentioned, too, that you kind of got in on him late, but you developed a relationship. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, Josiah was a kid that I think there was probably a couple different things. One, it might have been a little intimidation on some people because of dad and because of his brother. And, what is he going to be? And he's an excellent football player, played at a really young age at a great nationally ranked program and played in national games and high. And it was just one of those deals where there was a connection really early on with him. I called, he answered. And it just one phone call turned into 2 phone calls and consistency. And I think there was maybe some other inconsistency, either because for whatever the reasons. And I think some people probably thought he was going to Clemson. I think some people thought he was going to go to whatever, And I didn't listen to any of that, and he didn't listen to any of that, and it just kind of worked out. And there was the relationship that was built there. And then when he came to campus, to our guys' credit, to our players' credit, to our staff's credit, and to the state of West Virginia and Morgantown, he got here and he fell in love with the place, and that's pretty cool. As far as him having a little spice, Josiah's got personality. Josiah loves football and he loves to compete, and he gets ingrained in the process of watching film and diagnosing and what is the offense trying to do here, and as a defense, what are they trying to do here? And he grew up around it, and I'm a coach's kid. I grew up around it. So there's probably some things that in the process that connected us both to each other, and he's done a great job of continuing his progress as a player. And I love that. So we've got great personalities in the room. There's never a dull moment when you actually sit back and don't go straight to football, and you just kind of start having a conversation with the guys in the room. It is funny, and he's right there. He's right there in the front with all of them.
It's interesting because you invest that time in him. It's not like grenades and horseshoes. Number 2 doesn't work in that deal. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you had to take a little bit of a risk. You're going to spend a lot of time recruiting a kid that's got a ton of people after him. You got to have a gut feeling, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a testament to Coach Brown, and just, you're not going to win every recruiting battle, and you're not going to sit there, and you got to be really smart in your resources. You got to be really smart on how wide of a net. But at the end of the day, it's really hard to recruit 40 guys, extremely, extremely hard. So you gotta find those guys that you have a connection with. You got to find those guys that check every single box. And yeah, you got to go all in, and you got to be willing to go, hey man, like, we don't get this. It's, and that's part of recruiting, and that's to be honest with you, that was the same for multiple guys in the room, because we really narrowed, and I think we've done a really good job of trusting our evaluations on these guys. And some guys were really hard gets. Some guys were, for whatever the reason, maybe not as hard competitively to get them. But at the end of the day, they all checked all of our boxes, and they were all priorities in the recruiting process. And extremely proud and extremely happy to have them all here, because a lot of work went into each and every one of them, and he's another example of that. So, I see your point on that, and I agree with that.
Jeff, specialists, you return basically everybody. Looks like some of them are pretty solid and continuing, but competition at other spots.
Yeah.
Where are you solid? Where do you think you still have competition?
Yeah, well, I think you got to start the conversation right now with Austin Brinkman. I mean, he's at another level right now, and I know Coach Brown has said it, as far as, by position, most talented guys on our team, and he's one of those. He's a national long snapper. He's got the size, he's got the speed, he's developed his body, he's got the consistency, he's got the accuracy, and at the end of the day, the guy's a football player. Like, he's a football player, and it doesn't matter what you ask him to do. He's going to do what you ask him to do. And so we're going to, what he can do operationally on field goals and what he can do operationally with times on punt and location, we take advantage of it. And he's been elite for a long time. So really happy with him. Really feel good about McGuire Moss as the number 2 right there. He's really improved. He's taken a whole nother step in his approach and in his development. And you're seeing that coming out of spring and early on in fall camp. He's increased his velocity. He's really working on his body type and all that. And he's buying into what we're trying to do developmentally with Mike and Haley and her staff. So I'm really comfortable with him. I probably wouldn't have said that a year ago, but I definitely feel like that now. Ollie's Ollie, man. Ollie's, 2-year starter and was one of the best punters in our conference last year. Had some things this offseason to really get him healthy 100%. Battled through last year with some injuries and was very productive through that, and looking forward to him having a big season. And again, increases leg strength, increases flexibility, which at that spot is critical. So feel really good about him. And then Leighton Bechtel is right there with him. And, Leighton Bechtel has every bit of the leg and the hang time. It's just a consistency thing and making sure that we're on our launch points and where we need to be. But he's a guy that's between holding, and he's been a snapper for us. I mean, he's been a utility guy for us in that room for several years now, and ultimate team guy, and proud to have him here and feel great about where he's at as a punter. Mike's really done a nice job in camp. Hayes, and his kickoff leg is looked really good. His field goals have looked really good, and he's being pushed by RJ, and RJ has done a nice job of his consistency. And the good thing is in camp, we're making this a hard week for everybody, those guys included. So we're putting them in some stressful situations. We put them in some end-of-game situations today, and we'll continue to do that and to put pressure on those guys. But they've done a nice job of answering it most of the time.
Nate Flowers is your backup kickoff guy? I'm sorry?
Just going back to Josiah for a second, this might be hard to ask, but because it was so early, but when he got hurt last year, it seemed like right away you guys man, that's the guy who's going to play. I mean, is it, even though it was April, is it too early to say he would have had a significant role last year?
No, I don't think so at all. I think he showed in his practices last spring that he was going to have an opportunity to really compete and to be a huge factor for us last year. No question.
It sounded like the way he talked, you set up almost a season to the side for him. He was going to be out, but it was not going to be a lost year. I don't know if you'd been through something like that before with the player, but what did you structure and why, and how did you guys walk through that together?
Yeah, I think, when we recruit guys to come here and we talk to them as players and we talk to their parents and their families, we talk about developing them on the field and as people. And that was no different. And just because a guy's hurt doesn't mean you can stop developing them. It doesn't mean that it's my job. Everybody in that room, whether they got a surgery and they're out for the year or they're playing on Saturday, it's my job and what was asked of me to develop these guys. And Josiah was no different. And that would have been the same for anybody, whether I thought he was going to be a starter as whatever year in his career or be a 5-play guy. It's about development. And, what we did was, I tasked him with watching the opponent early in the week, writing down notes so that we could, visit, and then we would dialogue during the week at lunch. We get a plate of food and go into my office, and that's probably my half an hour or 45 minutes that I have to kind of, get my thoughts right for the afternoon after practice and those things. And I'd spend it with him, kind of go through the notes. Okay, yep, you're up. You're right on that. You're right on that. Oh, now this one, here's what we're thinking on this back set, against this formation, this call. And he'd write a note down. Okay, yep, I understand that. So it was his way to not just practice breaking down an opponent, like what he's going to have to do now for Penn State in 2 weeks, but also how our defense matches different opponents and how our defense and our scheme matches different things. And the cool thing is in this conference, you go through the gamut. And 1 week it's a 2 tight end offense that's going to multiple formation. And 1 week it's a spread offense that's going to go a million miles an hour. And 1 week it's 2 tailbacks. And so, you wanted to maximize that so that when he was able to come back in spring, he was way further along, and he wasn't just relying on what he naturally had as a true freshman. Because at the end of the day, he's not a true freshman anymore. He's a redshirt freshman. And it goes the same along the lines with Ben Cutter and Trey Lathan and all those guys. So, to maximize that development and to fulfill a promise, that's what you do. And that's what we're about. Yeah, Preston's done a great job. I think he's obviously solidified himself. He's one of the best punt returners in the Big 12 last year. We're excited about him. The thing I love about Preston is he has pushed himself. It's very easy to go out there with the amount of experience that he gained last year. And one of the hardest things to do in football is to catch a punt with a 4-0 hang time with 10 guys screaming down at you. That is hard. And he hasn't taken that for granted, his experience. He's really dialed in. And if we do catch him on the off chance of losing his technique on a return, he's beating himself up and he's all over it. I think we've built depth right there. I think we've got some guys. Rodney's really come along at that spot. I think he's a guy that we all know what he can do with the ball in his hands, and he's really improved his technique. And there's a lot of things that go into being back there, whether it's when to field a ball, when to get guys away from the ball, pooch punt situations, sideline situations, and he's really grown in his understanding and knowledge where Preston's, solidified all of that. Kick return wise, I think the biggest thing is I think we're going to be bigger back there. We're going to be bigger than you've seen, between Hudson and Traylon, Ray and Jaden Bray and some of these guys that are these big, longer, explosive guys that can break some tackles, and that's kind of what we're looking for. And then just continuing to teach them and train them to what we call run through the smoke. So when there's a little bit of, it's not necessarily wide open back there because that doesn't happen. That looks good, but that doesn't happen. Run through the smoke and break a tackle and turn a 10-yarder into an 18-yarder, turn an 18-yarder into a 30-yarder, and then the big ones will come when it's time. But, and then continuing to block it up for them.
Do you tell them when they're fielding the kickoff, make sure you can get 25? Is that kind of the approach, or how do you go about that? I mean, obviously, you know what I mean? That's kind of your working that field position deal there.
Yeah, I think First of all, you got to be understanding of what to expect from a kicker standpoint. All right, and every week we're going to know what the average hang time is from the kicks that we're going to receive, and based off of where we're going to put them, whether that's on the goal line, whether that's 2 yards deep, and that's going to change. That's a game plan thing. So every week, them understanding, okay, here's the hang time. It doesn't matter how well you break it up. If we got a hang time of 4.4 seconds at the goal line, they're going to be down to the 15-yard line. It's really hard to block that. Now, so to sit there and say, hey, our expectation is to be the 25 on every single return, what we want to do is make sure we're plus 25 on every possession. You know what I'm saying? Whereas every return, okay, now we get one at the 5-yard line. Absolutely. We want to be past the 25, but we might have had a chance to get to the 30. So it's what we want by possession and how we can steal those yards by possession. And sometimes that's a fair catch. Sometimes that's off a return.
I saw a stat last year. You guys ran 6% of your plays inside the 20, which speaks to your guys' decision making, the return game, and all that. So that's obviously a plus for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, starting field position and Coach Brown does the best job of anybody I've ever seen as far as really educating the team on what the difference is in, say, 4 yards. Like, and you said that, the percentage inside the 20-yard line. If you can eliminate as many plays as possible backed up, your chances of scoring points go up exponentially. And it's the same thing on defense. If we can cover and we can get explosive stops on a cover unit like punt or kickoff, and we're going out there and the ball's on the 19-yard line as opposed to the 25-yard line, like the percentages of us being successful on defense go up. So our guys truly understand that, because that's something that we talk about year round. And if we have football time in the offseason, if we have football time in spring ball, we have football time in the summer, we're educating our guys. And that's not just returners. That is blockers on the back end. Those are gunners on punt. Those are jammers on punt block, where that have to hold guys up and understand where they are and dimensions of the field. So there's a lot of education that goes, and it's not just for the returners. But I think those guys have done a really good job of understanding what we're trying to do to win the football game. All right, what our plan is to be successful and to win games.
Have you studied the dynamic kickoff at all, and are you anticipating that coming down?
Not at all. I'm going to let this season play out and watch all that chaos and let them figure it out, and then call my buddies up there and figure out what they decided to do after actually doing it in live action.
Did that scare you at all, though, how fast they implemented that without any trial period?
It didn't scare me. I mean, I understand what they're trying to do from an excitement standpoint and a safety standpoint, and the game evolves. And, you know, obviously that's the epicenter of our game is the National Football League, and I'm going to be really interested to watch how it kind of develops as the season goes. I mean, I think it was one preseason game, and they're already talking about changing, you know, the touchback rule, and I mean, it didn't take long. So there'll be a lot of moving parts when it comes to that, and eventually, I'm sure it'll filter down. I would imagine, and we'll have a plan when that happens. But right now, I know this: we gotta kick it from the 35. We gotta time up our takeoffs, and we gotta spend a lot of time perfecting what is still our rule and what our coverage responsibility is.
The unique aspect of that is the kick. Yeah. I mean, that's going to be an interesting deal there, how that goes.
Yeah, and you just talk about how elite those kickers are, and how elite at that level those kickers are, and the ball control, and that's really fun to watch when you can see what these guys can do, and as far as placement width and depth wise, it's at a whole nother level. So
You guys are doing that right now in practice anyway. There's a lot of that element in what you're doing.
yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we always have a landing zone, we always have a hang time, we always have our array of specialty kicks that we've got to execute. So there's no difference on that. It's just, I think when you watch there's hang time, and then there's hang time. And there's placement, and then there's like 2-yard radius placement, you know. So, but yeah, absolutely.
Okay, any other questions for Coach?
Thank you.
Awesome.